Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's video, I have another Adobe XD tutorial for you guys. We're going to be creating this website that you see right here from start to finish using Adobe XD. If you guys are new here, I create UI UX related content, so make sure you guys subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a video. So let's go ahead and head over to Adobe XD and get started with today's video. The project file for today's tutorial is linked down in the description. This has a 1920 by 1080 artboard with the default 12 column grid setup that we're going to utilize in today's tutorial. It's going to also have the colors and character styles and relevant symbols all in here for you, including two of the images that we're going to be using for some cards, so that way you don't have to design those yourself. So make sure you guys download that before we get started. Today's video is sponsored by Milanote. Milanote is a bit different than traditional software. It's more like working on a wall in a creative studio. It allows you to map out your projects, gather and organize all of your inspiration in one convenient place, and it also allows you to collaborate with your colleagues or clients in real time. As a designer, it's an essential part of my workflow, and this awesome tool is free, so check out the link in the description. I also want to let you guys know if you're interested in the first half of these design tutorials where I plan and organize my thoughts and come up with these designs. I have a video series of how to plan a UI design with Milanote, and I'll link that on the screen right now. And I also wanted to let you guys know I have a future series coming up specifically for app design and interactions and planning those out using Milanote. So if you guys are interested in any of that, I'll have more information on that coming up on the channel soon. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started with our design. To start off with this design, we're going to work from top to bottom. So we're going to start off with our navigation, and we're going to be skipping a column on the left and right just to have some extra space on the side. So we're going to start with the logo. So I'm just going to zoom into the top left-hand corner here, and I'm just going to write out social posts. That's what we'll call our company name. And I'm going to align this to the left. And over here, I'm going to grab the Open Sans 30-point font, and I'm actually just going to customize this by dropping it down to 25. So that won't be over here in the character styles. You know what? I'll just actually add it here, so you'll have that. So that's for the logo. And I'm going to put this here on the second column, align it to the left, and holding Alt with this item selected, I can view all the measurements. And I'm going to bump this up 45 from the top of our artboard. Now over here on the right side, we're going to skip a column again, and we're going to have a button over here. So I'm just going to drag out a placeholder rectangle for now. Really doesn't matter what size it is. We're just going to put it there and make sure it is center aligned with that logo. In the center of our page, we're going to have some text links. So I'm just going to type out some junk text for now. And we're going to set that to 17-point font. And we'll bump this up to semi-bold. Just make sure that's center aligned, and we'll hold Alt and create a duplicate. And we're going to put these 44 pixels away from each other. We'll just create a few of them. Let's go with 4. Let's grab all of those, and we'll center them to the artboard. So I'm going to hit Command G to group them. Then up here, I'm going to hit this align. It's going to center that to the artboard, and I can hit Command Shift G to ungroup them. So now they're centered on our artboard for now. Next up, we're going to have a heading and a paragraph over here. So I'm just going to grab the type tool, and we'll just paste in a bit of text. And we're going to set this to 42 size font. And this is going to be a bold weight aligned to the left. It's going to align that on this left-hand column for now. We'll worry about the vertical height of this later. And this is just going to say increase social media growth on all platforms. Below that, I'm going to drag out a text area by clicking and dragging. We'll just make this about 3 columns wide for now. And I'm just going to put in some random text. I have a plugin for Lorem Ipsum, so I'm just going to generate a paragraph. And we'll remove a bunch of this. Just make it about 3 lines of text. And we're going to set this to our Open Sans 17-point font, regular weight. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to adjust the line spacing to 27.6, just to give us some extra line height there. And we'll just drag this box till it touches the bottom of our text. We're going to put this 30 pixels below our heading just to give us some good spacing. And below that, we'll have another button. So I'll hold Alt and drag this rectangle down. And we'll put that 30 pixels below as well. And I'm gonna grab both these rectangles and I'm just gonna fill it with this default gray. So I'll just grab my eyedropper tool and then remove the border. So now that we have that, we can just center this to the artboard. So just dragging that grouping down, you'll see our line appear there. So we'll just put that in place. And we're also going to have a card over here with a bit of statistics. So we'll just put a placeholder rectangle there for now. And just trying to center that up with the artboard as well. From here, what I want to do is create a section that's gonna kind of be showing down here in the bottom so the user knows there's another section, and just to add a cool effect. So I'm gonna grab a rectangle and I'm gonna make this the full size of the artboard. So it's 1920 by 1080. And from here, I'm gonna hold Shift and grab this top left corner and drag it all the way to this left-hand column, like so. So this rectangle is now 1642 wide and 924 high. From here, I'm just going to drag this down. And it doesn't matter how much of this you want to show. I'm just gonna do it visually. We'll just put it about there. I'm gonna hit I on my keyboard for the eyedropper tool, and I'm gonna set it to this default gray and remove the border. So this is going to be a colored section later on. So I'm gonna double click on the artboard and we'll just drag down so we can see the rest of the section for now. And we're gonna have a similar layout as we do up here. So I'm gonna grab all three of these, hold Alt and drag to create a duplicate. Command Shift right square bracket key will bring it all the way to the front. We're gonna line it up on this column now. So we're going one more column inward. So we'll just align it to that and we'll align it center in this rectangle for now. So this rectangle, I'm just gonna fill that as white so we can see it. And I'm gonna do the same with the text, just fill it all to white for now. I'm gonna change the heading a bit. So we'll just paste in some other text. This time I have put connect with all your followers in one place. And again, we'll make sure there's 30 spacing in between that and the button. Actually, let's just remove the button and we'll do another paragraph of text. So I've grabbed a bunch of lorem ipsum this time and I'm just gonna paste that in. This text is gonna be the exact same styling as our old body text. So it's gonna be 17-point font, 27.6 for the line height. And then I'm gonna put some paragraph spacing at 30. So it's gonna space that out. And so we need to expand this box now all the way down to the bottom of our text. Then we can grab that in the heading and center that up into this section. And over here, we're gonna have an illustration that we're going to create in XD. So we'll just add that later on. So that is that section pretty much done and wireframe. So let's move down. So I'm gonna double click on the artboard and just drag down quite a bit. Next up, we're gonna have two cards side by side in the next layout. So I'm just going to drag a rectangle out and I'm gonna set this to 657 pixels wide by 800 tall. It's a nice vertical shaped card. And we're gonna make sure that's aligned on this left column. I for the eyedropper tool, grab the gray we're using and remove the border. And then I'm gonna hold Alt and create a duplicate and make sure it is aligned on the right-hand side of the second column. And if you've aligned that correctly, we should have 50 pixel spacing in between, which we do. For the spacing between this section and the previous section, we just need enough for the user to scroll and feel not crowded. So I'm gonna hold Alt with that selected. We got about 360 spacing. So I'm gonna test this by actually scrolling through our design in our preview. I think that feels okay. So we'll do that with the next section down below. So we'll double click on our artboard and drag down just a little bit more. And this final section is going to be a call to action to get the user to sign up. So I'm gonna go up here and grab all of this, the heading, paragraph, and our button placeholder. Hold Alt and drag to create a duplicate. And here I'm going to center these all together with this align tool right here. And then I'm gonna unselect the button and center the text just like that. So I'm gonna double click and edit our heading and we're just gonna put in grow your social media. A little typo there. Okay, and fix the spacing, 30. Realign those centered. Command G to group them and then realign them center to the artboard. Command Shift G to ungroup and we'll check, make sure we have 30 spacing, which we do. So with all that selected, we're gonna try to match the spacing between each of these sections. So we had 360 here. We need about that here just to make it look pretty good. We might actually add just a little bit more. So we'll see how that looks while scrolling. That looks good. So we need some extra space there. So we'll leave that alone. I'm gonna double click on the artboard and we'll just drag it up a bit. About 360 spacing below that button. I think that gives us enough space in this section. Now, two final things we're going to add to this wireframe is down here we're going to have the copyright text, and then over here we're going to have an option to change the language. So let's go ahead and just grab the type tool and just type out some junk text. I'm going to align this to the left. This is going to be 17-point font, regular weight, and we're going to align this to this second column on the left. Holding Alt, we have 82 spacing, so we're going to drag that down till it is 45 from the bottom to match our navigation. Just like that. And then holding Alt, we'll drag over. And this time I'm going to align this text to the right. And I'm going to put an icon placeholder here. So I'm going to hold Shift and drag out a square. And this is going to be 24 pixels by 24 pixels. And I'm going to fill this in gray and remove the border. So we'll just put that there. And we're going to align this visually. We'll put 12 spacing in between that. Grab all of those, center them together, and make sure we still have 45, and bump that up 1 pixel, and there we go. So we'll fill that text out later. So that is pretty much our wireframe. So I'm going to turn off our layout grid, and you can see what we have right there. So we'll work on the cards, this illustration, and this next. So let's go ahead and select this design, Command D to duplicate the entire artboard, and we're going to call this wireframe, and we're going to call this one design. So now that we have the website wireframed and we've got all the sections laid out and how we want the website to flow, let's go ahead and start to finalize some of these design elements. So we're going to start off with the button. So the button, we're going to make this a completely rounded button. So I'm just going to drag in these corners all the way till it's rounded. And we're going to have two sizes of these button. So first off, I'm going to set the height on this one to 50. And so I'll need to drag that corner in some more. And the width, we're going to bump that up just slightly to 173. And since we've done that, I'm going to recenter that with the text. And I'm going to hold Alt on this text and drag it to the center of this button. And I'm going to select both of those and just make sure they're center aligned together. I'm going to grab the text and center align that as well. And in here, we'll say get started. We'll go ahead and set that to a white fill. And for the background, we'll set that to 5E, 5BC7, which is a nice purple color. And I'm going to group that together with Command G. So we'll go ahead down here on this next button and delete that. And I'm going to create a duplicate of this and put it in its place. 30 pixel spacing below the paragraph. So this one's going to be slightly larger since it's our normal button. It's not in a navigation. So I'm going to hit Command Shift G to ungroup this. I'm going to grab that rectangle and I'm going to expand this until it is 260 pixels wide. And I'm going to increase the height all the way to 70. And then we'll just round this back off and center our text back inside of it. And this text is going to say, try it now. Command G to group those together. And we can add this button down at the bottom as well. So we'll just drag a duplicate of that. Delete this placeholder and put this right below that. And this one is going to once again say get started. For the call to action button, we're also going to change the color on this one to C6, 3C, 8C. Next, let's finalize some of this text. So let's go ahead and change these links, and we're going to have to respace these. So the first one's going to be discover. Next one is what we do. Pricing. And finally, contact. And we'll set the spacing back to 44 pixels for all of them. And once we've done that, I'm going to select all of them, Command G to group them, and I'm going to center them to the artboard, and then Command Shift G to ungroup them. So that will realign them to the center of our project. Moving on down, we already have our heading text, and we have our paragraph. We're just going to leave this at lorem ipsum. So I'm going to turn the fill on this down to 80% opacity, just so it's a little bit lighter so it doesn't clash with our heading. Moving on down to the white text here in this section, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn the paragraph text down to 80% opacity. And we also have our heading text finalized. We're going to add the text to these cards in just a second. But down here, we need to do the same thing we just did, lower the paragraph text to 80. That's just kind of a workaround so we don't have to actually change the color of this to like a slightly gray or black. We can just lower the opacity since it's on a solid colored background and we get the effect that we're looking for. It separates those two together. Down here at the bottom, let's go ahead and finalize this. So I'm just going to paste in our copyright information. And then over here, I'm just going to put English since that's our current language. And then we'll add this drop down icon in a minute. So both of these texts we're going to set to a lighter color. We're going to set this to B1, B5, BE, which is just a lighter gray. And now for our cards, we need some text. So I'm just going to copy this text, Command Shift right square bracket key to bring it forward, center line it horizontally on the card. Vertically, we'll worry about that spacing later. This first one's going to say target Facebook. And this next one over here on the right is going to say grow your Instagram. I'm going to put 120 spacing from the bottom of this card on each one of these. So let's drag that down so we have that. Moving on, let's go ahead and select our logo and we'll just make that the purple color we're using. Then for our card placeholder, let's adjust the size to 652 wide by 454 tall. Once again, we'll align that to the center of this section. I'm going to double click to turn back on our layout grid, and we're going to want to drag this over to this right side edge. I'm also going to take this text and this button and just bump it up just a little bit to around there. That's 255 pixels from the top of that if you want the exact same spacing I'm using. And I'm going to select this placeholder, remove the border, and I'm going to apply a drop shadow to this. I already have one here preset for you. The color is 262C34 and it's set to 8% opacity. And we'll adjust the Y on this to 15 and the blur to 50. So that gives us some nice separation from the background, nice and subtle. I'm also going to round the corners on this to 20 pixels. So now let's go ahead and actually create this card. So to start off, we're going to make a graph that's just going to be a visual of this heading. That's why we actually have the heading text here. So this is going to visually represent what this is saying. So it's going to show that growth. So first off, I'm going to create a rectangle. It's going to be 32 wide and we'll set the height to 92. I'm going to round this completely just like that and remove the border. And I'm also going to set this to this lighter color gray, which is DFE2EA. And I'm just going to hit repeat grid on this and just drag over until we have 7 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just going to zoom in and adjust this repeat grid right on that edge. And we're going to double the spacing. So by default, a repeat grid has 20. We're going to adjust this to 40 spacing. Then we can center this horizontally to this card. And I'm going to put this 150 pixels from the bottom of the card as well. So just drag that down to there. Now I'm going to ungroup this repeat grid by going up here and selecting ungroup. And we're just going to drag these different sizes, making a bit of a graph here. We just want to show constant progression as we go through. So they're just going to get a little bit larger as it gets towards the end. And the final one will make significantly larger like that. This final one's actually going to be colored, so we're going to set that to this reddish maroon color that we're using. And below each one of these, we're going to have the days of the week. So I'm going to start with Sunday. And this is going to be set to 17 point open sans, and this is bold. And I'm going to put that right below each one of these with 15 spacing below. So I'm just going to hold Alt and create a duplicate on each one of these. And I'll come in and add each day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and finally Saturday. Well, we're going to have the key for this. So I'm going to create a circle and I'm going to set this to that maroonish red color and remove the border. And then I'm going to create another one of these and we'll set it to that gray we're using there. 8 pixels beside that, we're going to have some text, and this is going to be set to 17 point regular weighted open sans font. So I'm going to align this to the left, and this is going to say goal report. So this is what our goal is, to have this increase, and then we'll create a duplicate of that. And here we'll put average daily report. And we'll grab those and align those on the right-hand side of this graph. I'm going to put these 50 pixels from the bottom of this rectangle. And up here at the top, we'll give this a title. So we'll just call this social statistics. And we'll set that to 30. 50 pixel spacing from the top of this card. And we'll align it to the left-hand side. Just like that. And then below that, we're going to say last 7 days. We'll set that to 17 sized font, regular weight, and we'll just put it right below it. And this one will be set to this darker color gray, which is B1, B5, BE. And that is our visual for this section done. So I'm going to grab all of that and hit Command G to group it together. So that finishes up this top section. Let's move on down. This one is going to be our colored section. So it's going to add a lot of color to the site. So on this, what we're going to do is set this to our purple color. And I'm going to go over here and select this icon, and we're going to round this corner and this corner down here. So we're going to round that to 20. And that next corner is all the way at the end. We'll set that to 20 as well. So that keeps this running off the page and doesn't round these two corners whatsoever. For some detail, I'm going to grab the pen tool, and I'm just going to add some shapes here in the corner just by clicking and dragging. And we'll connect these just like that. And we're going to fill this with what I've called darker, and that's just to distinguish the different purples. So this is the darker of the purples, and we'll remove the border from this shape. And I'll just position this a little bit better. We'll put it up there like that. And we're going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. So I'm going to grab the pen tool once more and create kind of a rounded shape for the bottom. Just connect that all the way to the end. And this time this will be set to this reddish color. And we have that right there. So now we need to mask this. So I'm going to grab our original rectangle, Command C, Command V. With that selected, I'm going to hold Shift and grab the first shape and then the last shape. And then I'm going to hit Command Shift M on my keyboard. And that masks that out the same size as our shape. This section needs to represent connecting with users. So we're going to create a comment section, and we're going to do that by making several comments. So let's go ahead and create a rectangle. And this rectangle is going to be 674 pixels wide by 110 pixels tall. And let's go ahead and remove the border and apply our drop shadow that we've been using. So we'll just go ahead and select that preset. And for the Y value, we'll leave that at 3, and we're going to set the blur on this to 30 pixels. Let's also round the corners to 10 pixels. Next, let's go ahead and create a profile icon. So I'm going to drag out a circle, and this is going to be 70 pixels by 70 pixels. We're going to put this 20 pixels from the top, left, and right. And next to that, we're going to have some text. So I've just typed out a comment there. So now we need to select this name, and we're going to set that to bold. So I'm just going to select that 17 point bold font over here. And we're going to do the same for the 1 minute. So we'll just bold that. And for the color on this 1M, we're going to set that to our darker gray color. So once we're done with this, I'm going to select the text, the avatar holder, and the rectangle, and hit Command G and hit Repeat Grid. So we're going to drag this down until we have 4 of these, just like that. So I'm just going to drag those in and place them in, and the repeat grid will automatically fill those out for us. I'm also going to remove the border from our circle since we no longer need that. And we can now ungroup the grid. So I'm going to select the grid and hit Ungroup Grid. We're going to adjust the spacing now to 50 pixels. And we'll do that for all of them. I'm going to double click on our artboard and turn back on our grid. Select all 4 of our rectangles and let's position those on the second column here on the right, and we'll center those to the section. We turn back off our grid, and on this third one I'm going to indent it visually just a bit there. So next we need to change each of these texts, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So next we need to drag in 2 icons. So I have those here in the symbols panel for you. Just drag in the send icon. We'll align that center and 30 pixels to the right of this. And we're going to set that to our purple color. And I'm also going to drag in the reply icon. And I'm just going to center this. And we'll put 40 spacing from this edge. And we'll set that to a white fill. Just like that. So now we have that visual here done. So let's move on down to our cards now. So to start, I'm going to select both of our cards and I'm going to change the fill to white and then apply a shadow. We're going to go ahead and put our default shadow that we've been using on. For the Y value, we're going to set this to 15 and the blur, we're going to bump that up all the way to 50. On these, we're going to add a border radius of 10 pixels. And that's pretty much all we have to do for the card itself. Now we're going to drag in our 2 images, which I already have for you. And all you have to do is center these to the card and align them to the top. So I'm going to do that with both of these. Just like that. So all I did was I created a mock-up image of an Instagram profile and just masked that out. And I downloaded an SVG pack. I just Googled and found like the Facebook icons. Put those in a little design like this and mask those in a shape exactly the same size as this one as well. So that's how I created those images. So that is that for that section. Down here at the bottom, what we're going to do is create a nice little visual for this section, grow your social media. So I'm going to grab the pen tool and I'm just going to create a curvy line. Just kind of showing some progression over time, getting larger as it goes up to something like that. On this, I'm going to size this border up to 10 pixels. Then I'm going to right click on our lightest color gray and apply this as a border. Command Shift left square bracket key to send it all the way to the back. And I'm going to drag the opacity down to 20%, so it's a very subtle detail. And we'll just leave that in the background behind this section. Finally, the last thing we're going to do here is add our icon in here. So I'll just delete the placeholder and then drag in this down arrow icon. Make sure it's centered with our text. And then we can turn back off the grid. So you could call this done here, but I'm going to add some more subtle details into this. I have 2 more I want to add. So I'm going to double click and turn back on our grid. I'm going to grab the pen tool and I'm going to select a point right here on the top of this card and on this column right here. Just put a point and then take this up to the corner. And I'm going to create a triangle shape just like that. And I'm going to remove the border, select the fill. And then I have this gradient up here for you. So I'm just going to click that. And I'm going to adjust this gradient just slightly. So I'm going to put the gray swatch down here in the corner and the white one up here in this corner, just like that. Command Shift, left square bracket key to send it all the way to the back. If I turn off the grid real quick, you can see we have that nice subtle detail. Then we're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to hold Alt and create a duplicate of this. And then I'm going to rotate this around so that it fits just like that. Now I'm going to take the white swatch and put it up the top and the gray one down here at the bottom, just like that. So with that, we are now done with our design. So that is it for this Adobe XD design tutorial. Here is the final result. Again, thanks to Milanote for making this design tutorial possible. If you guys are interested in using Milanote for your next creative project, there's a link at the top of the description. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more design related content, turn that notification bell on so you don't miss a video, and as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.